Is Putin sensing an opening as the Iran war puts growing pressure on Trump's military arsenal and global attention? With U.S. weapons stocks reportedly under strain, does Putin believe this is his biggest chance to raise pressure in Europe? Has Trump's Iran war given Putin the opening he was waiting for, as Washington divides its focus between multiple crises? With Patriot interceptors and Tomahawk stocks under pressure, is Putin preparing to test how far America can stretch its military power? Did the CIA chief rush to Moscow to stop Putin from exploiting what U.S. intelligence sees as Washington's vulnerable moment? Is Moscow preparing for escalation as America's munitions stockpiles face mounting demands from the Iran war and Ukraine? As U.S. weapons run low in the Iran war, Vladimir Putin may see a chance to press Trump, testing Washington's resolve across Europe and beyond. U.S. intelligence believes Putin now views America as weakened by the 6-month Iran war, according to reports on a classified assessment of Kremlin thinking. The assessment noted Moscow may see an opening to pressure U.S. interests and European allies, exploiting concerns that Washington's military resources are overstretched. Putin could exploit America's distraction to increase pressure in Europe, The Washington Post reported, though there is no public evidence of a final decision to attack NATO territory. The assessment comes as the Iran war has placed growing pressure on key U.S. weapons stockpiles, including air defense interceptors and long-range strike systems. Patriot air defense interceptors face shortages, raising concerns about whether the United States can quickly replenish systems needed by partners and forces worldwide. Tomahawk cruise missile stocks have been heavily depleted, placing pressure on a long-range precision strike capability central to U.S. military planning. Other sophisticated offensive weapons are also under pressure, as sustained operations demand more munitions than existing production lines can immediately replace. Roughly a quarter of America's Reaper drones have been lost, reducing the availability of a platform used for surveillance, targeting, and precision strikes. Asian allies have raised concerns over U.S. weapons shortages, fearing that commitments in the Middle East could affect supplies intended for the Indo-Pacific. Arms producers are being pressed to accelerate production, as Washington seeks to replenish depleted stocks while meeting the needs of allies and active operations. The classified assessment preceded CIA Chief John Ratcliffe's secret Moscow trip this week, suggesting Washington moved quickly after reviewing the risks of a wider Russian escalation. Ratcliffe flew to Moscow on August 25 for rare talks with Russian intelligence officials, in what became his first publicly known visit to the Russian capital. The CIA chief warned that a major Ukraine escalation could backfire on Moscow, The Washington Post reported, rather than deliver the advantage the Kremlin might expect. Ratcliffe argued escalation could push Trump closer to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, potentially hardening Washington's support for Kyiv instead of weakening it. Trump personally sent Ratcliffe to Moscow, according to the Wall Street Journal, entrusting the CIA director with a sensitive direct message for Russian officials. The mission was so sensitive that some senior White House officials were kept unaware, underscoring the secrecy surrounding Trump's communication with Moscow. Some military leaders normally briefed on such missions were also left out, according to the Wall Street Journal, as the administration tightly controlled information. Ratcliffe reaffirmed America's commitment to NATO's Article 5 during the Moscow talks, warning Russia against any attack on an alliance member. Additionally, the CIA chief pressed Moscow to curb economic and security ties with Iran, including Russian military support and defense technology cooperation with Tehran. Trump, however, downplayed fears that Putin could move directly against NATO territory, even as intelligence concerns and European anxiety over Russia's intentions persist.
Mr. President, has Vladimir Putin agreed or committed to not attacking a NATO territory?
I've had good talks with him. He's not going to be attacking a NATO territory.
Mr. President, did Ratcliffe deliver a warning to Russia not to attack NATO territory during his...
Well, I don't want to comment on that, but they're not going to attack.
Kremlin-linked sources told Bloomberg that Vladimir Putin is preparing to escalate Russia's war in Ukraine after concluding that peace negotiations have reached a dead end. A growing number of Russian officials reportedly believe that a tactical nuclear weapon could be considered as a last resort measure if Moscow's position deteriorates further. However, Bloomberg reported that there are currently no signs Russia is preparing to use tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Russia has repeatedly issued nuclear threats since the invasion began, using its nuclear arsenal as a tool to intimidate Ukraine and discourage deeper Western military support. Details of Putin's reported escalation plans were carried by Meduza on August 27, citing Bloomberg's reporting and Kremlin-linked sources. Moscow's emerging strategy is reportedly based on the assessment that all meaningful frameworks for a negotiated peace settlement have effectively collapsed. Russia is now weighing an intensification of powerful conventional ballistic missile attacks against Kyiv, rather than an immediate nuclear escalation. Potential targets reportedly include central Kyiv as well as critical infrastructure in other Ukrainian cities, which could increase risks for civilians and essential services. Kremlin sources said, and I quote, "Russian President Vladimir Putin will not end the war under pressure from economic sanctions or Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil refineries and logistics networks." Moscow increasingly views Ukrainian strikes as attacks by NATO member states because alliance members supply Kyiv with weapons and intelligence. Every mechanism for peace talks has collapsed, leaving the two warring sides back where they started. The Kremlin believes that it has already made concessions during the war and that each one weakened Russia's position. In the absence of diplomacy, Moscow sees few ways to achieve its military goals other than further escalation. The intensifying Ukrainian strikes have led a growing number of Russian officials to believe that Putin could eventually take the extreme step of using tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Against the backdrop of sustained tensions between Russia and NATO, the Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet carried out tactical air defense drills near Kaliningrad on August 26. The purpose of the exercise was to rehearse how Baltic Fleet units would respond to and repel a simulated enemy air raid aimed at their naval base and nearby military facilities. Crews from ships stationed at the Baltic Naval Base carried out their assigned training tasks, including surveillance, target detection, threat classification, and the simulated destruction of hostile aircraft. Under the drill scenario, Su-30 multi-role fighters, Mi-24 helicopters and unmanned aerial vehicles from the fleet's drone units acted as the simulated attacking force. After detecting and classifying the incoming targets, the warship crews used their anti-aircraft missile and artillery systems to notionally destroy the simulated enemy force. The drills came amid continuing NATO military activity around the Baltic Sea, where alliance members have increased surveillance, exercises, and force readiness following Russia's war in Ukraine. Russia has previously rejected calls for the Baltic Sea to become what Moscow describes as a NATO inland sea, arguing that the alliance's expanding presence threatens Russia's security interests in the region. President Vladimir Putin has said Russia would respond to any emerging threats to Kaliningrad, a heavily militarized Russian exclave position between NATO members Poland and Lithuania.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.